Since its inception, Ghibli Park has faced skepticism from many, including us, for being a theme park with next to no rides. Yet true to their reputation for capturing wonder and whimsy, Ghibli Park, tucked within the repurposed grounds of a former World Expo, defies convention to deliver a themed experience like no other. Ghibli Park trades thrill rides and flashy attractions for immersive environments and intricate details, allowing visitors to truly step into the worlds of Totoro, Kiki, Howl, and more. Here, the joy is in the journey itself, wandering through realistic recreations of iconic locations and uncovering delightful secrets at your own pace. But while the park's highs are truly groundbreaking, it isn't without its puzzling lows. Having just returned from our October 2024 visit, let's dive into what makes Ghibli Park so unique. We'll explore how it achieves astonishing feats of immersion alongside some truly baffling design choices, and ultimately tackle the big question: is this theme park worth visiting, even for those unfamiliar with Studio Ghibli? For Review Time, I'm Luke, and this is Ghibli Park. The plans for Ghibli Park were first announced in 2017 by Toshio Suzuki, a producer with credits behind some of the brand's most prominent films. According to the original announcement, the park would focus entirely on the world of My Neighbour Totoro, and was planned to open sometime in 2020. This would all be located in Aichi Expo Park, a vast collection of parks and venues originally created to host the World Expo back in 2005. This likely came as little surprise, since the location already contained a replica of the house from My Neighbour Totoro, which was originally built for the Expo in an area known as Morikoro Park. In 2019, Ghibli announced the addition of 4 new areas to the park based on some of the studio's other properties, dramatically expanding the scope from beyond just My Neighbour Totoro. In February 2022, it was announced that the park would open in 2 phases, starting on the 1st of November later that year. The first phase would open 3 locations: Ghibli's Grand Warehouse, Hill of Youth, and Dondoko Forest. The second phase, planned to be concluded in late 2023, would add the Valley of Witches and Mononoke Village. Ultimately, this second phase was delayed to March of 2024, and today the park is fully opened and finished. And thankfully, this fully finished park is the one we got to experience. We have plenty more content to come from our Japan trip, so be sure to subscribe to see it all and support the effort we make into making these videos for you. Ghibli Park is located in Aichi Prefecture, around 45 minutes east of Nagoya. Nagoya is around halfway between Osaka and Tokyo, and is a perfect place to stop for a day or two if you're traveling between the two. From Nagoya Station, we took a subway on the Higashiyama line before transferring to the Linamo, an elevated, automated railway that feels like a people mover crossed with a monorail. After your 45 minutes of travel, you finally arrive at Ghibli Park. Now to start, Ghibli Park is weird, but that's not inherently a bad thing. It's very different from what you expect from a theme park. To start, each of the park's lands is spread around much of Aichi Expo Memorial Park. There is no real main entrance gate, as your ticket is technically a collection of multiple tickets that get you into exclusive, closed-off areas within the larger public park. This means that as you explore, you're surrounded by locals enjoying the park's facilities, walking their pets, going on dates, or just chilling out in the public spaces. It's an interesting experience for that alone. Everybody will have a different day at this park, as it's kind of a choose-your-own adventure. Other than the Grand Warehouse, everything else can be experienced in whatever order you want. This does mean that there is no real introduction area such as Main Street USA to bookend your day, and instead you're kind of just thrown into things. Also, some sections of the park are much weaker than others, meaning if you did things like we did, the experience can start on a great high and then slowly taper off to disappointing lows. Speaking of tickets, getting into the park is notoriously difficult. Tickets drop once a month on the 10th at 2 p.m. for dates 2 months later, and sell out almost instantly. We had over 30 tabs open across multiple devices just to secure our tickets. As an international, you have 2 ticket choices. Both get you into all of the 5 lands, but only the premium pass lets you go inside buildings such as Howl's Moving Castle and Satsuki and Maze House. The regular ticket only costs around $25 and the premium pass is only around $48. Just be aware that this sells out every day, no matter what. So this can be a good thing to do on a weekend, where most things at Japan are way busier than they are on a weekday. When purchasing your tickets, you need to select a time, but this is just for your only allowed entrance into the Grand Warehouse, as everything else you can do whenever you like. We recommend getting the earliest time slot you can for the warehouse, as by the time we left, it was already getting crowded, and this was only a couple of hours into the day. Also, inside a lot of the buildings, filmings and photography were not allowed, so for some areas you'll just have to listen to and trust our gushing, and then go and see it for yourself. As mentioned before, the park is made up of 5 unique ticketed areas spread throughout the publicly accessible Expo 2005 park. The Hill of Youth is where most people will enter the park and is also the smallest of the park's lands. Surprisingly, this spectacularly designed castle, which acts as the park's weenie, is open to the public and is really just a disguised, ornate elevator. Heading from the train station and down the elevator or nearby staircase, you'll be right by the entrance to the Hill of Youth. Inside the ticketed area, there are officially 3 attractions, but you won't believe how silly one of them is. First is a recreation of the Cat Bureau from The Cat Returns, built at the correct scale, meaning you can look through the windows at all the cat-sized furniture and household items. The main draw of this area is the World Emporium, where you can step inside the antique store featured in Whisper of the Heart and see the Baron for yourself. Downstairs in this building is, of course, the violin construction area, where a poor staff member has to listen to guests absolutely butcher the instrument all day, every day. The final listed attraction for this area is a roundabout. No joke, the Rotary, as it's called, is a recreation of the roundabout from Whisper of the Heart. Hill of Youth gets a 5 out of 10 from us. The biggest draw for a lot of people will be Ghibli's Grand Warehouse, an immaculately designed indoor area packed with activities, photo ops, and countless things to look at. From the beautiful tile mosaic staircase to the nostalgic shopping street to the various shops and cafes. Walking around this area alone is exhilarating, and that's before you step inside any of the buildings. The area is almost a collage of multiple movies realized into one physical space. And all around you'll find references to Ghibli movies, both old and new. Some places aren't on the map and you will only discover by exploring. So make sure to take your time wandering this vast location. Unsurprisingly, one thing within the warehouse is a warehouse that stores a bunch of older or unused physical props from different exhibits or installations over the years. This was a wonderful little walkthrough with very little signage, and again was rewarded by wandering around. 3 larger special exhibits called the Warehouse Home, and these are set to change and rotate over time. The most permanent feeling one was the adequately named Becoming Characters in Memorable Ghibli Scenes. This had the longest queue of the day by far. However, we figured out that this queue was purely to take a photo with No Face on the Sea Railway. And if you wanted to skip that one photo op, you could often just walk inside and partake in the rest of them. Inside the exhibit, you could take photos in 14 scenes from 13 films, all of which had some impressive scale and great kinetics. clearly designed to look amazing in your Instagram photos of the park. The next exhibit was Delicious, Animating Memorable Meals Expanded Edition. This exhibit looks to answer the question, why does the food in Studio Ghibli films look so delicious? Through some amazing original art from the film, as well as some creations of famous locations and food from the movies. The final and smallest exhibit is Everything Ghibli, a really unique look at posters, DVDs, Blu-rays, and more from each and every film released. This was attached to the end of Delicious, but was a separate exhibit. But it at least meant you only had to line up once to experience both. One of the major draws of Grand Warehouse is a cinema that plays animated short films that are exclusive to the park and the Ghibli Museum. On our visit, we saw a film where a rabbit and a boy were racing, and that's about all I remember. Films change out every month or so, and your ticket includes one viewing of that month's film. Elsewhere around the warehouse are plenty of photo opportunities, dining options, and stores that we spend more money inside of than we care to admit. It's difficult to fault the impeccable design and detailed environment of the warehouse. It was a spectacular way to start our day and envelop ourselves in the world of Ghibli. If it wasn't for another area absolutely blowing everything else in Japan out of the water, this would be a surefire perfect score. But the Grand Warehouse gets a 9 out of 10. From the towering highs of the warehouse to the groundscaping lows, Mononoke Village is easily one of the weakest lands within Ghibli Park, which I don't feel so bad saying, considering it's rated 2.5 stars on Google. Princess Mononoke is on my list of movies to watch, but I thought I would at least recognize some of what they were trying to achieve here. Nothing seemed familiar, and it just felt like an old Japanese village, which was neat, but not up to the quality we expected from everything else. In terms of attractions, there are really two things to do here. There is a souvenir corner that I swear was designed to fit 3 or 4 people at most, as well as an experience to make your own mochi, which is unfortunately a paid upcharge at 1,200 yen. Not really feeling either of these, we probably spent a total of 5 minutes in this location. If you haven't seen Princess Mononoke, you could comfortably give this location a pass. And judging by reviews, even if you have seen it, you could probably comfortably give it a pass as well. I respect what they were aiming for here, and I think they pulled it off well, but compared to the rest of the park, it feels considerably lacking, especially when the only 2 activities here are essentially shopping. 3 out of 10. Dondonko Forest is deceptively far away from the rest of the park. Accessible via upcharge cat bus, regular bus, or a free 20-minute walk, after trudging towards the forest through the lush foliage, you are greeted by a steep stairway that surely must lead to an action-packed area filled with wonder and whimsy. Getting to the top, however, you are greeted by a big wooden Totoro we were too old to climb inside of, and not much else. There is a unique slope railway, but this takes you outside of the ticketed area and won't allow you back up. So if you do want to use this to get back towards the main section, make sure you leave this part of Dondoko Forest till last. The other part of this area is Satsuki and Mei's house, which requires the premium ticket to even enter the grounds. This is a recreation of the house from My Neighbour Totoro, and was the least interesting of all the homes and places you could explore inside of. This is likely because the house was originally built for the World Expo back in 2005, where everything else was built brand new for the park. Even without a ticket, around this area are plenty of beautifully manicured pathways that take you away from the city hustle and bustle. It's a bit more obvious here that this is the older part of the park, but its charming design and relaxing atmosphere really sell the experience. 7 out of 10. The Valley of Witches is a testament to what happens when a space is built on the foundation of genuine immersion rather than spectacle alone. It is an impeccably designed space dedicated to the more fantastical characters that populate Ghibli's movies. We went here second after the warehouse, and it unfortunately made the rest of the park after these two look lackluster in comparison. Ghibli clearly thought Earwig and the Witch would be a much more popular movie than it ended up being, as one of the most immersive attractions in the entire park is the House of Witches, a recreation of the home where Earwig lives in that film. While neither of us had ever seen this movie, this house is the location where it truly clicked for us just how special and unique Ghibli Park was. In this house, you can open drawers and examine items as if they belong to real inhabitants, all of which made us feel a profound sense of discovery. It didn't matter that we hadn't seen the film. Standing in that house marked the moment when Ghibli Park's magic truly revealed itself. This wasn't like a theme park where clearly everything is fake and made to last. Everything in this area felt real. Want to open those drawers? Go ahead. Want to take something out of those drawers to look at? Nothing is stopping you. The House of Witches and all the other explorable buildings were packed with realistic detail on a scale we've never seen before. One of the other explorable buildings is the Okino residence where Kiki and her family live in Kiki's delivery service. This one is a bit of a strange choice, as the house only features in the first few minutes of the film, and the recreation features rooms that aren't even shown off in the movie at all. Of course, they also have the logical Kiki tie-in of the bakery, complete with all the bread you wish to purchase, as well as Kiki and Gigi's room above in the attic. You can also visit Sophie's shop from Howl's Moving Castle, which fittingly is a hat store, where you can buy original hats inspired by Ghibli films. Howl's Moving Castle is also the film that gives us the most impressive thing in the entire park, the titular castle that with the premium ticket, you can actually go inside of. Areas in the castle such as the living room and Howl's bedroom literally made our jaws drop. We have never been inside areas of a theme park so meticulously crafted. It was legitimately like stepping into the film. From the outside, whilst the castle doesn't completely move, the occasional movement of one part or some billowing smoke adds some beautiful kinetics and just the right touch of whimsy. This area is also home to the only rides in the theme park, two off-the-shelf attractions that have been themed to match the area. The rides here aren't about thrills, but about ambience. The first and least interesting is the flying machine, inspired by Castle in the Sky, where pedaling fast will give you a slightly elevated view of the Valley of Witches. The second and final attraction is a spectacularly detailed carousel where you can ride aboard vehicles inspired by classic Ghibli films. Riding the carousel to the soundtrack of Howl's Moving Castle enhances the nostalgic, fairy tale quality of the area, blending music and movement in a way that feels quintessentially Ghibli. Elsewhere in the Valley of Witches are plenty of buildings to explore and climb on top of to give you some beautiful overlooks of the entire area. There was also a stand selling the most bizarre-looking glizzy that we've ever seen in our lives. Outside of the warehouse, this is easily the area you will spend the most time in, so be aware, especially if you are trying to save the best till last. Ultimately, the Valley of Witches is an area that we rate a full 10 out of 10, not just for its atmosphere, design, or individual draw cards, but for how seamlessly it all comes together. The Valley of Witches isn't just a theme park land. It's an invitation to step into a world where every detail, no matter how small, is being considered, resulting in an inspired experience that's virtually perfect. Congratulations, Ghibli Park. You did it. You won theming. I struggle to think of any theme park in the world that is as immersive or immaculately conceived as Ghibli Park. You can pick up, touch, and interact with everything. It genuinely blew my mind. Let's take Kiki's home, for example. You can visit her room, and if you look in her chest of drawers, there are literally child-sized clothes with Kiki embroidered on them. In the House of Witches, they have a mixture of herbs that you can smash into a mortar and pestle. These aren't movie sets. These aren't even themed buildings. These could be fully livable places with thought behind every element to them, with each being completely traversable, even on the outside. If these were built into a soundstage, I would be impressed. But no, they're fully realized buildings. I don't know why, but many of them even had flowing water in their kitchens and flushable but unusable toilets. Why? Plumbing is expensive, and there's no need for it to be in a themed space. But every tap I came across, I went, I wonder. And yep, sure enough, every time I checked, they worked. And let's be real, this could not exist anywhere other than in Japan. There were so many props and little handmade knickknacks the guests would pick up, look at, and then respectfully return. If this was any other country, everything that isn't bolted down would be stolen within the first day, heck, even within the first hour. On that, let's talk about the atmosphere. Yes, it is frustrating how difficult it is to get into this theme park, but the fact that the crowds are restricted meant that the atmosphere here is an incredible change of pace for Japan. Almost everywhere we went, we were fighting crowds, but not here. You could enjoy everything at a leisurely pace, take your time and appreciate the details. On that as well, this place is kept in an immaculate condition, considering it's essentially a high-touch interactive playground. But on to the important question, is it worth a visit? The value here is an interesting one. You can argue that even if you had never watched a Disney movie, you could still have a great day at Disneyland, thanks to the rides, fireworks, shows, and more. But Ghibli Park is different. If you haven't watched any of their movies and don't want to, then this isn't for you. If you think it looks cool and you do want to experience it, then these are the movies I think it would be worth watching to get the most out of your visit. My Neighbour Totoro, Howl's Moving Castle, Kiki's Delivery Service, Whisper of the Heart, and of course Spirited Away, just because it's the best Ghibli film. Not all of these are mandatory though, as Dom had only seen Howl's Moving Castle, Spirited Away, and My Neighbour Totoro, and still had a blast. Price-wise, it's very affordable, with tickets cheaper than both Universal Osaka and Tokyo Disney. You can even just purchase the $25 standard ticket, which just lets you walk around, making it even more affordable. Of course, if you're a ride fiend, there's a lot more at Universal and Disney, so the value for you may not specifically be here. We thought that this couldn't possibly be a full-day experience, but by the end of the day, we were literally running to finish things off before they closed at 5 p.m. One benefit of the premium pass was that it was fittingly limited. We didn't have to wait more than 5 minutes to get inside any of the exclusive areas, and once inside, none of them felt cramped or crowded. As we've stated before, the park is vast, and whilst there are lifts and ramps for those who need them, the sheer scale of the park is something to be aware of. We recommend checking out the park map and information in more detail before you go if accessibility requirements are a worry. There is also the fact that this is in Nagoya. For tourists, Nagoya isn't very high on many people's list, but I would recommend adding a day of traveling between Osaka and Tokyo to experience this as a Ghibli fan. Whilst you're here, you could also add on a day at Nagashima Spa Land for thrill seekers or Legoland Japan for families, which is similarly close to Nagoya. One thing we haven't touched on is merchandise. There is a lot of very cool stuff to purchase here, and it's all of outstanding quality, as we've come to expect when traveling Japan. It is expensive, so be prepared to pay a pretty penny, but it was difficult to resist buying everything cat bus related. While I've loved the Ghibli films for decades and was always going to enjoy my day here, Dom isn't a huge Ghibli fan. He only started watching the films when we decided that this was a destination on our trip to Japan. And still, he found this to be a highlight of our travels. It's filled with charm and whimsy that reminds me of Disney in the mid to late 2000s. This is one of those places I'd recommend if you're headed to Japan and haven't even seen a Ghibli film. Just give the couple that we recommend a watch, and you're sure in for an excellent time. For Review Time, I'm Luke. Thanks for watching.